How many podcasts does it take usually before people quit? Because we ain't quitters. We should
I
be,
heard I
but we're
I
not.
read a comment on one of our podcasts that said, I think about right around July or August, that we had done more casts than the typical cast. I guess they die out at somewhere around 13 or 10 or something.
So
I'm
overachievers.
finally an overachiever in life.
we've released 19. We've recorded 20, 21, and this will be double deuce.
22.
It's Taylor
All right,
Swift's
so
number.
in this is a good podcast because this is our first podcast where we're going to find somebody that could help us be better. I would say anglers, but for me, like tournament angler. Like I like. Oh, hey, by the way, I think we can get Dr. J McNamara on here soon, so stay tuned for that. Do some more competitive mindset stuff, which is one of my favorite things we do. And then yeah, we'll have him on there. We got a couple other cool guests, but this one's going to be our first. I think like let's dive into the techniques of bass Durban. Maybe learn something. And in my opinion, this is
big fish catching. That's what it is.
Do you guys ever do these podcasts and you're like, someone's breathing really heavily, and then while you're trying to figure it out, you hold your breath and then it stops?
You realize it's you.
And you realize the microphone just hears you
just like
heavy breathing.
Little Vader going on.
It's more like a fat kid with a candy bar.
Yeah, running towards the candy bar.
Running.
He ain't breathing when he's eating a candy bar.
I was going to say, it could be me. I get winded easy, okay?
It's definitely me. I can guarantee that. But
you are listening to the Alpha BassCast with Jake Boomer, Brian Smith, and Bo Fletcher.
Should I let him in?
Do it.
What's up?
Josh.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Sorry about that delay.
No worries. You don't want to go into the delay, or we should just leave it to the imagination?
I mean, it basically got back from Mexico and apparently picked up some sort of little bug down there. And it's been a rough 8 days, I'll tell you that.
Don't they call that?
We're on the mend.
I think they call that Montezuma's revenge.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that stuff lasts like a day or so, and that's from drinking the water. But I don't know if it was like some sort of salmonella. I guess I don't know how long salmonella lasts either, but it was apparently everyone on the trip got it. So yeah, it's great. It was really fun. How you guys?
The gift that keeps on giving.
They keeps on giving. We should at least introduce Josh. Josh, how do you say your last name? Because that's an argument. I say it's Pladies.
Pladies.
It's Pladies. See, Josh Pladies is the owner, president, CEO, top dog of Clutch Swimbaits Company, which obviously you can see by his hat. But just in case you're listening while you're driving, Josh is the man at glide bait creation. Probably working on some stuff besides glide baits too. Right, you've done a lot of different bait creation. But yeah, so we're really it's pretty awesome because we're really going to drill hard on you. We're going to ask a bunch of questions about tournament fishing, about the industry, like how do I'd love we've got actually the video from when you came to Coeur d'Alene a couple months ago and I got my first kind of glide bait. I think we had forward image glide bait. It was like lesson 101, class 101.
That timing was just impeccable.
Timing was perfect.
Timing was impeccable.
Yeah. So let's get started. I know Bo has a lot of questions too. I'm just gonna out you. Bo's a fanboy of Clutch, big time.
Nice.
I'm a fanboy.
It's a fanboy.
I'm gonna take notes as well throughout this, just to make sure if I get any good content ideas, I jot them down real quick so that way I don't forget them. But
show everybody.
I want to crack the can with a question. So I see some familiar faces on the wall behind you. I'm assuming that those aren't just random pros with your baits in their hands.
Yeah, they're not random pictures. So that's kind of the top 10 galleries that we've kind of collected over the past couple years. We can do a quick tour of them.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to remember where that one was. I think that's Wheeler Lake with Hamner. That was Patrick on the Sabine. Not sure why he put a baby boss in there, but I don't think he caught him on the Sabine with baby boss. That's JT on, I think that's Harris Chain. Patrick Murray, I think the first time on Murray. Hamner, I think that's Classic. There's Brandon that was the first time or I think that was the second time the Darter was ever on Bass Live. Yeah, that was I think Logan Martin, where Brandon got second and had I think it was a deadfish issue. That's Hamner at the Classic throwing the baby boss. That's Patrick on Murray either the first or second time. That was the Bass Times article cover with Brandon and a big old boss sitting in that fish's mouth. Tyler Williams on Lake of the Ozarks. Hamner, Smith Lake, I think. And then Trey McKinney on Harris Chain. And then that's Mexico last year. My buddy made this big sign for us, so it was kind of cool.
I think
Yeah, quick tour of the wall.
I think that shows right there
Yeah.
that your swim baits are your baits are different than most glide baits on the market. You know, it's a bait that you can use often in tournaments, and I think that's probably the biggest difference I've noticed with your baits is it's not something, because I remember, you know, growing up in California, glide baits were huge when they first came out, but I felt like the more I threw a glide bait, the lower I was in the standings. But something changed with what you guys have come out with, and it's actually a viable bait that you can throw in tournaments. You can get multiple bites, and you can also get big bites.
Yeah, and I think swimbait fishing, like every sort of fishing, is really evolved throughout the past. Really, I mean, it's really picked up steam the past 5-6 years, but it's been evolving for a while from those California days. That's obviously where it kind of got its start over here, with guys throwing these big glide baits and soft swim baits and all these funky looking baits at trout eating fish. And as those baits have kind of traveled east, they've started to kind of adapt and change and started getting a little bit more shad profile. And then once they went shad profile, we started messing with sizes and profiles a lot more and figuring out different actions that work in different locations, and figured out how to make what was traditionally a big bass tool into something that can be used every day and still has a lot of drawing power and has a lot of effect on fish, but it's something that's a little bit more commonplace in your day-to-day fishing. So that way you go out there, and those days of, oh yeah, I'm going to throw this big bait all day for 2 bites that's kind of history. They're either on it or they're not.
Okay, so
you're going to get, wait, we're going to stop real quick. Before
Everybody
you talk,
wants
Josh,
a piece of you, Josh.
Yeah, before you talk, Josh, just give it 10 seconds, because every one of us is gonna. I have I have the notepad you showed me to buy right here.
Yeah,
full of questions, but we'll try to be careful. Maybe we'll take turns. Bryant has to raise his hand.
Just
raise your hand, Bryant, if you want the next question.
Wait, hold on. I can do that in here. Look, Bryant raised his hand.
Yeah, look at that.
Raise your hand in that. All right. So apologizing to the listeners. Apologizing to everybody else. We might take a couple-minute break after Josh talks to make fun of Bryant, and then we'll move on. But for a lot of it, it's just going to be like this barrage of questions. Anyways, sorry. Go ahead, Bo. You're up.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is a barrage of questions, because you truly have created something that I don't think exists in the swimbait culture, and so I guess my first question is, I hear you talking about this, like, because I like swim baits. I have thousands of dollars of swim baits. and it's stupid because I would prefer to just throw yours all the time. So I guess my first question is like, when you started this journey, and I'd love to hear more about the journey, like how you got here. Like I saw you used, like your YouTube video goes back to where I think you were making like goose calls at some point years ago, and there's even videos on like how to make custom jigs and things like that. So like I'm really curious, like what got you there? Like what got you to, I'm going to make glide baits? But then did you realize when you went down that road, like were you just kind of like, did you have like, was there something that differentiated your concept that put you into this mindset?
Yeah. So let me preface all that by saying that, I mean, whether it be baits or whether it be rods, in Jake's case, I think we all kind of stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. Like it's not like I came out with anything brand new, different. Like, oh, I completely changed the game. It's all like the evolution of bait design, rod design, and everything like that is minimal increments over time. And all those little incremental changes add up to what innovation is over time, in my opinion. So it's just trying to make your mark on that little sub niche, trying to figure out how to advance the ball further down the line. And if I've been able to do that, that's a pretty cool accomplishment. But kind of going back to what you were talking about, yeah, I thought at one point in time I wanted to do something YouTube related. I really thought I was going to be in the waterfowl industry 10, 15 years ago. Loved duck and goose hunting, and tried a lot of different stuff there. Like I did competition goose calling contests, just tried to figure stuff out. But I mean, me being a dumb kid, didn't really know where I fit in with all that stuff, didn't really fit in anywhere with it, and tried to, like, I was pretty good on a goose call, so I tried teaching people how to do that because that's what I thought I could do. Try to figure out this YouTube thing and do that. Didn't really work. And it just kind of kept advancing, kept them up there, because I still get messages to this day about goose hunting people like, man, I learned how to blow a spit note because of that video. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So we'll leave it up there. But I mean, I got obsessed with tournament fishing and grew up fishing in Kansas. And if you know anything about the Kansas lakes, like they're not good, like at all. And like, I mean, it's really, really, really bad. And
Call it how
Ned
it is.
Katie, the Ned Rig guy, he actually lived not too far, like a couple blocks over from where I lived, like when I was figuring all this like swim bait stuff out. And where all these guys were throwing Ned rigs on these Kansas lakes, I started experimenting with glide baits and started realizing like, oh, well, you guys are throwing something that big. I can throw something this big and catch bigger fish. And just kind of started working through that and started figuring out what works better on those really heavily pressured, not a lot of fish in the lakes type fisheries. And it's just kind of advanced from there. Like I started messing with swim baits one day, got some resin, started carving my own stuff, and it just kind of snowballed from there. A little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder, and we're here.
What were you throwing back in the day? Like what was your like go-tos that got you started into this?
I mean, I threw some of the KGB stuff. I threw the S waivers. Like I think my first ever swim bait was an S waiver 168 because Tactical Bass told us to. And of course the yellow, or what was it? We call it the banana.
Light trout.
Light trout. I mean, I had Huddlestons and stuff. Like I started with some bull shads, like everything basically Tactical Bass told us to buy back in the day is kind of where it all. And then it just kind of started going from there, started dipping my toe in the resin side of stuff. And yeah.
When you first started, I didn't raise my hand, Bryant, sorry. When you first started, when you were competing in Kansas and everybody was throwing the Ned rig, was that when you were kind of like fired up about getting into bass fishing, and you were like, Ned rig, if I go out in this tournament, and you actually employed the glide baits during those tournaments, or was that you just trying to figure it out on those bodies of water? Or did you actually go into derbies with just a glide bait?
No, I never went into a derby with just a glide bait in Kansas, because I don't think you'd get 5 bites a day on it, but you can catch a couple real nice ones. I was kind of the anti-Ned rigger, I hate that. I still don't have them in the boat to this day. I hate that bait so much because it's everyone like you don't understand. Like the rabbit hole that these Kansas guys went down was insane. Where it's like, no, you've got to throw this exact head, and sometimes they're biting red, sometimes they're biting chartreuse, sometimes they want this 4-inch one, sometimes they want this 3-inch one. And it was like they made it so complicated. And I just
It's a 2-inch
didn't
bait that
think
doesn't
that-
move. It's not that
Yeah, exactly.
complicated.
Like, I don't want a full chartreuse head. I want a half a chartreuse head. And it's like, guys, like this makes
like-
no sense to
Like walleye fishermen.
me. Yeah. Yeah.
You
exactly.
gotta you can only put half a crawler on the back of it. You know what I mean? Like, well, what's wrong with 3/4 of a crawler? And how do you know if your crawler's longer than the next guy's crawler? Like, I don't know. Sorry.
What if my half is your 3/4?
Yeah.
Comparing 3-inch soft plastics on 16th ounce jig heads, like this isn't the most fun form of fishing.
That's really interesting.
But you would catch your limit some way or whatever, catch a bunch, and then you would go big fish hunting with glide bait. It's kind of how you put it into tournament.
Yep. And back then, I swear, like glide bait fishing was so much easier back then. Like no one else is really throwing it. Like you don't really hear too much about people flipping a glide bait. Like I haven't gotten bit flipping a glide bait. Like literally, like you're going down the bank, like flipping bushes with a glide bait. I don't really get bit doing that too much now, but like 6, 7, 8 years ago, like yeah, you'd catch a lot of them doing that. You're just kind of flipping down there and just twitch, and then reel it in, throw it to another bush, twitch, and like you're not working it very far. You're just trying to get that reaction strike out of them. But that bite seems to have gone away like big time.
Because do you think because guys are doing it?
Yeah, I think they're seeing it a lot more for sure. I think it's they're. I mean, when everyone's throwing smaller stuff and you come behind with like an 8-inch bait and pitch it in there and it's acting completely different, like those fish are completely dumb to it.
Right. I have to tell this story about that flipping bushes thing because I've told it before, I think, on the podcast, but because we're having a glide bait conversation, when Brandon got married, he flew all of his buddies into Coeur d'Alene, which Brandon got married like 4, 5, 6 years ago. So probably about the time you're talking about. And that was back when Carl Joachimson was like, I swear he studied glide baits and how to apply it into tournaments. And he had so much time on his hand. He was just, I thought he was really good at it. And that's when Brandon Zarashi came out. And he had Kevin Ledoux in his boat. It was Brandon, Kevin Ledoux, and Carl Joachimson. And Brandon and Kevin are in the front, and they're in the river at Coeur d'Alene. You've been there. It's Coeur d'Alene or Ponderay, one of the two. And Kevin's telling me the story during the wedding, like after everybody's kind of just hanging out. He's like, dude, yesterday we were going down, and Brandon is using his glide bait up front, and I am flipping the bushes. And we'd go by it, and Carl would flip and catch one out of like every other bush. And he goes, it was so like disappointing that we couldn't get a bite, go by it, splash the bush 3 times, and then Carl could generate a bite out of the same bush fishing from the back of the boat. And I'm like, we're not talking about 2 slouches here. We're talking about Brandon Polinick and Kevin Ledoux, who fished the elites for 6 or 7 years. Kevin was like, it was almost like the Twilight Zone. I hated it. He said he hated it, but Carl had the deal down where he would just blast one right out from behind him. The boat would go by it. Obviously, they saw Brandon doing it, right? But that technique to it, that story, one, it blew me away because I love people that get to like a highlight of something like the height of, but it also turned me off of throwing a glide bait because I don't know if I would I'd have the time to get to where Carl was. Because there was a time when Carl lived in his camper, didn't have a house, and he wrote down a list of things he wanted to master and just went down the list for years. Like he was good at everything. So anyways, so I remember that story, and it kind of like, I don't know. I'll just throw a chatterbait.
there was an elite series a few years back where he was doing that for he has that, I can't remember, that Italian company. I think they made a glide bait with him. Yeah. And he was I can't remember what the derby was, but he was basically doing the same thing for bedfish, and he was drawing them up and getting them to bite. It was crazy. And all I was thinking is like I mean, this is like finite technique stuff, but he was able to toss that glide bait out, and he was able to slow it down so well that it would literally hit that water and you wouldn't even see water come off of it. It wouldn't even hit with a splash. Like he could stop that reel so well that it couldn't even spook the fish. And he would draw them out and they'd come up and strike at it. It was crazy.
I think we're still on the very beginning side of utilizing like glide baits for bed fishing. And I know that's a very controversial topic, like the bed fishing side of stuff, but you can get a fish to react to a glide bait like insanely well. I remember talking to, I can't remember what guy it was or who it was. It was after the Elite on Hartwell. Someone was bed fishing there, and they're like, man, if I couldn't get that fish to react, I'd throw a darter in there because they would 100% like annihilate the darter. The problem is like 50% of them you'd have to throw back because they're hooked outside the mouth. So I think figuring out different ways to make them target that hook and get that hook in the mouth, I think is kind of where bed fishing with the swim bait's going to go. And I've got a little bit of experience with it. So like we were down on Fork. This was probably 2-3 years ago at this point. And there was a male up there guarding. And I think they see hooks like crazy well. So we basically had a boss that was a floater and we'd sit it on the surface. Or let me back up. We pitched at this fish for a while and could not get it to respond to anything. I mean, flipping everything in on it, putting that bait on any part of the nest, could not get that fish to move. Threw a glide bait in there, that thing got super feisty really quick, like super fired up, but wouldn't like touch it, would get right up on it, but not touch the bait. I was like, let me see what happens when I take the treble hooks off. So I took the treble hooks off, threw it up there. The fish came unglued on that bait, like destroyed it. It's like, all right, well, let me throw the hooks back on there. It's fired up. Now let's try to catch it. Threw it back in there, got super fired up, but would never touch it. And then took the hooks off again, threw it back in there, fish hit it. So we put a single, I think it was a number size 6, tiny little treble hook on the front of it. The fish actually targeted that hook and got the hook in the mouth. So I think those fish can really see treble hooks way better than we give them credit for, especially like a big like size 1/0. So I think that's something that I know I want to experiment with more, like a lot more in the future, like figuring out different ways to make them like target exactly on that glide bait where I want them to without being intrusive enough that, oh, that's a hook, I'm going to get caught because I hit that thing.
Well, do you feel like because you do this and a lot of swim bait makers are starting to do it now. I mean, I've got, I don't know, half a dozen swim baits that have the double rings, to get the hooks to move more. Like, do you think that because you're now integrating swivels into your hook rig, do you think you can kind of get away with a smaller hook because you're not really needing as much hook since you have so much more movement?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I still think anytime you're throwing a tiny hook on a like 4 to 5 ounce bait, like you're just kind of asking for problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much weight and it doesn't take a lot of like force for them to throw like a little, even a size 2 or size 4 hook. So
right.
It's, you're asking for it, but at the same time, if that's the only thing you can get a fish to bite on, like sometimes you gotta risk
Roll
it for the
dice.
biscuit, I guess.
Yeah.
Risk it for the biscuit. That's crazy. So let's go back a step then, because now you know that I had this huge fear after listening to the Carl story that I was like, I think in all the tournament hours that I've competed in the last, I don't know, 10 years, I don't think one time did I throw a glide bait in a tournament. Like that story like the story that Carl's told and then other stuff like that. I didn't think that I'd put the time into doing it, that I could actually give up an hour or two to get that bite, whatever bite that would be. And but after meeting you and hanging out with you a couple months ago and seeing the way it could be applied and the amount of bites we got, there's definitely a progression between this is not just hanging out on the front of your boat with a cup of coffee, wheeling out a 9-ouncer, right? Like that, there's a progression that got you into designing baits that I think are kind of tournament baits. Am I wrong? Do you guys think, like Brian, do you think that like he's making like tournament quality, tournament grade bite generator? Bryant told me this is where this line was drawn for me. He told me one time, he said the darter is the best bite generating glide bait on the market. It was about 6 or 7 months ago. And I'm like, straight up, like you'd throw it, and you have, haven't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think, I mean, at least for me, I'm not a big swim bait guy. I've never been a big glide bait guy because, again, I had that scenario where I threw glide baits more back in the day. and my tournament results went down. So I was always really wary of them. They always kind of seemed like just search baits for me. And then I got that darter. It was actually Hamner that showed me the darter a couple years ago, and I started throwing it. I had some, free days, some pre-practice days, so I started throwing it, just messing around, and I was blown away at how many fish commit to it compared to I'm used to 95% of my fish following my glide bait, maybe a even higher percentage, sometimes 100% on certain days. But that one, for whatever reason, especially I thought in warm water, it was the absolute deal. And I mean, to attest to what Jake's saying, again, look at the pictures behind you. Those are guys throwing your baits in some of the biggest tournaments in America and having success with them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool.
It's pretty cool.
Especially, you like designed it from scratch too. Like you carved that stuff. That's pretty cool thought.
So, well, the darter was the first bait I ever made that was starting to utilize CAD. The OG was originally hand carved, and then I did CAD work for a living before that. And one day it kind of hit me as like, why am I trying to carve a bait? Like, I know how to do this on a computer. Let's just do it on a computer. And from there, it made it way easier to like manipulate them and figure out the little things that make a big difference.
So like SolidWorks, you'd build a SolidWorks model and dump it out.
I use Fusion. Yeah, I mean same principle.
Yeah.
But how did you I'm ignorant to this. So how did CAD give you that like edge as far as being able to understand what it would do?
I can manipulate thicknesses really well. So like with the Boss, for example, I'm about to hook myself there. So we want like early runs of the Boss, I realize you can't see that there. Early runs of the Boss like was a lot skinnier in general. And based off of how it was performing in the water, I had this thought where it's like, okay, this bait needs to have more buoyancy, but I want to keep it like super narrow throughout the belly. So utilizing CAD and different techniques in CAD, I was able to increase the thickness along the top, maintaining that thin belly, but basically adding more buoyancy or adding more material, which in turn added more buoyancy to the top. So little adjustments like that, like the little foil that's on the chin here, that was something that was added after the fact, where went back in there, added that. So that way the water flows across it a little bit different and makes it act just a little bit different as it comes through the water. Just little things like that, little tweaks make it's so much easier to do in CAD instead of like, oh, well, if I take that away on one of my carvings, like I've got to basically start from scratch again, which then could take you like 14, 15 hours to carve. Like I can do it. I can make adjustments like that in 15, 20 minutes in CAD, throw it on the 3D printer and have a new prototype tomorrow.
Oh, so you're 3D printing these?
The Masters.
The Masters, yeah.
So so it's a resin bait, but we'll 3D print. So I'll draw everything up in CAD, 3D print the Masters of it. We make silicone molds of the Masters, and then that's what these get made from.
That's so cool.
That's crazy.
So cool.
I was trying to just to take a step back because this is something Dr. J. McNamara taught us, and I don't know if you've watched any of our shows with him. He's a PhD psychologist that was teaching us about the way your brain works and how to be successful at things. And like when you got your degree and were drawing SolidWorks, you never probably thought where you'd be with it, but you're using past stuff. Your brain is using that to be successful. Like you don't go, like I'm trying to teach my kids. And I mean, I actually did a career day a couple months ago. I was like, don't go to college saying I'm going to be this or be that. Just go learn as much as you can and learn it good. Like, don't do like what I did in college where I like C's, get degrees. You know what I mean? Like learn it because you never know where you're going to take. Like I'm drawing CADs. If 10 years ago, hey man, you're going to be drawing glide baits with with CAD.
Yeah.
It'd be like,
hey, Bryant.
Oh, Bryant.
What do you think Jake really talked about at career day?
I put a picture up of Bryant, and I'm like,
"Hey guys,
if you don't do
here,
yeah, this is a savant.
Here's
You're
what
probably
not
not
to
one
do
of
with
these.
your life.
You don't want to end up like this guy."
Do you know how many parents called that teacher that day and were like, How did
Yeah.
you let this man talk to our
Yeah.
kids?
Fake it till you make it, Bo. That's the rule.
Oh, hey man, I get it.
I got something cool I got to grab real quick. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's kind of cool that you were talking about all the different life experiences in the past and how it kind of all adds up. Like when I was in college, like I changed my major like more than anyone. I think in 3 years I changed it like 7 or 8 times. Like and it went all across the board. It went from like I thought I was going to do veterinarian stuff to pre-med, then I went into business, and then I did engineering and education. Like I covered everything. But like looking in reverse, it's like I feel like there's a little bit from everything that I wanted to go into that I utilize today, whether it's making like educational stuff on YouTube, trying to teach people how to use glide baits, or the engineering side of stuff with the AutoCAD background and doing everything in CAD, to the business stuff where I'm using that for trying to sell more baits with Clutch. Like it's crazy how all of that stuff adds up over time, and it's cool to hear that. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, and you know, man, you touch on so many things I want to talk about with you, because that the educational part of glide baiting is that you've done is something I want to touch on, not now, but I wonder, with your technical background, you know, because you think about all the baits that have come out, you know, well, a lot of the glide baits that have come out on a large scale, and a lot of them that ended up getting picked up by bigger companies, turned into ABS molds, sold in the masses. Like these, I can't think of another glide bait company, you know, or a glide bait maker, let's put it that way, that was building something with the technical proficiency you had. Like, you know, I mean, most of these companies, these guys were doing exactly what you were talking about. They're hand building something, they're throwing it in a, you know, a pool in their backyard, and oh, I don't like this, and they go and then they do another one and another one. And I wonder if that's, I mean, do you feel like maybe that's part of what's giving you your edge, is being able to like dial something in on such a technical level? Because your baits truly do have, they do, like, you can feel the technicality in them when you're working them.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really like look at it that way too much. Like to be honest, I don't look at my competitors like much at all. I mean, I'll see what they're doing every once in a while, but like I'm not obsessed over them. And most of the time, I find a situation that I want to build a bait around, and I just start going down that rabbit hole and start trying to figure out what really, really matters in that given scenario. What is that fish looking for? And then just try to design based off of that. That's honestly what I'm looking at when I'm trying to design baits. And a lot of the times, like, I mean, the amount of baits I go through that never see the light of day, it'll never make it to market, it's insane. Like, I think I figured it out one time. I think it was 25 or 30 to 1 of different bait designs that I have per one bait that comes out and like is actually for sale. Like I've designed minnows. I've designed this weird little vibrating thing that you pull it through the water and it kind of shimmies and stuff, and it's almost like a soft lipless type thing. They didn't really bite it that well, and we weren't really in situations enough for me to continue to explore that and try to make the most bite getting thing possible. It was a very niche situation. So yeah, most of the time I'm just like trying to figure out what's that fish doing and what's the best method in order to catch them, and then how do we make it better? Does that make sense? And I mean, as of right now, it's been glide baits, but and that's basically just what Clutch is stuck to right now. But that doesn't mean that that's the case going forward in the future at all. I throw all kinds of other conventional tackle, and I'm always trying to figure out different ways for them to bite a minnow better, or a jerkbait better, or anything.
Your time to market though with your skill sets probably a lot faster than. I mean, I think that's huge, right? One in our market, and I know this from being in the rod side of things. Stuff that works, even if it's older, doesn't sell as well. Like if it's good, but it's a little bit older, and you came up with something and you said it was almost as good, but it's new, will probably sell better than the good old. It's just the way the retail market is trained the customer base to be that way. It's weird. Oh, it's new. Well, it's probably as good. Oh, well, it's new. I'll buy it. And so being able to come to market quick with new different designs and stuff, you can only change the paint so much. But that's what I've noticed since I've known you, which isn't very long. I think you've come out with like 4 new, like the mini boss just released, right? So
Yeah, we just announced it today.
yeah,
Which I think the bait that we came out with before that was the baby boss, which was exactly a year ago.
right.
So
So
what's the
quick.
mini boss? Let's talk about the mini boss.
Yeah. So first there was a big boss.
Huh?
Last year we came out with the baby boss, a little bit smaller, and then this year we just released the micro, which is just it's 5.5 inches long, weighs ounce and a quarter. It's a little bit smaller than our eco. This bait,
Wow.
the eco, is for fishing a little bit higher up in the water column, like fishing around laydowns and stuff when you need to keep that bait fairly high. The baby boss works like a boss and a baby boss, where it tries to dive down just a little bit, and that dive down kind of eliminates some of that. So there's all these forces that prevent the baits from getting like really wide when they swim. And one of them is line drag. And a bait that naturally pulls down is trying to resist that line drag that's trying to pull it to the surface. And it kind of almost makes it end up going straight instead of just diving straight down or coming up to the surface. And working level like that is crazy important for getting a lot of bites. So something that is able to naturally fight the drag of the line is really important when scoping. So that's kind of what this was for, was try to create a bait that is small. So when those fish are kind of keyed in, a little bit smaller bait, but still gets that, still has that drawing power and really converts fish really well. Yeah, it's been a long time figuring that out for sure, but we've done some cool stuff with it too. Like part of the, and Jake, we talked about this up there. So the paint process. So clear coat can't like adds weight to the bait. It's going to increase the rate of fall. That's fine on a big bait like this, where little bit of weight add isn't a huge deal. Like we still have way more ballast weight down in the bottom. But the smaller bait you go, the more like a 16th ounce of lead would affect a bait. So clear coat operates the same way. So I really wanted to eliminate clear coat on the micro boss, because there just wasn't enough massive resin in order for it to operate well. And so sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. You want to eliminate the mass as much as possible, except for where you want it, which would be along the bottom, so it keeps it more true. So
Yeah, no
we
clear
figured
coat.
out a process that basically it's this resin film almost that gets sucked down into the molds. And when we pour resin on top of it, because the resin film is resin and we're pouring resin into it, it chemically bonds to it, and the paint actually becomes part of the bait. So it's never going to chip. It's never going to peel. You're never going to have a paint issue. The paint is physically part of the bait, and we're able to do really high detail stuff, like that little
That's
slop
freaking crazy.
right there. So it's something that really
Wow.
hasn't been done before, and it took, I think I've been working on it from the first time I tried to do that. It was about a year and a half to 2 years ago. I probably should nail down that date, but about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we just finally figured out how to apply it to small bait situations. Big baits, we're still kind of working on it.
So you'll never scratch the paint. It's not. So how deep is it? Like
You'll scratch the paint. It's when you have hook rash on a bait, it's going to kind of cut through, and bare resin will be exposed. It's not super thick. It's a relatively thin film. But that kind of allows like the lighter part of the resin to shine through and allow it to be a little bit lighter of a bait. Otherwise it'd just be like super dark. Yeah, it's not super thick, but it's thick enough that like you're never going to have a problem with it. Like once you hook rash it, you'll kind of start to see some resin poke through, but yeah, that's the extent of the damage you're going to do to the paint on it.
that's crazy. A lot of people ask, like, you get it, like you buy a really high end rod and it's shiny. It's the same. It's the same math for me. We don't. That's actually something they call permagloss, but it's like clear coat for fishing rods. But it's the only value it really adds, if you have the right composite makeup, is shiny. Otherwise, it's just weight. So we never do it. We actually pulled it off of our crankbait rods. And the downside to that is fiberglass, when it gets in the sun, will dry out, and you'll start seeing the strands of the fiberglass. But the end result is, yeah, it might not weather as good or as long, but the rods are so stinking light that if it's just about cranking and getting bites, it's the rod is so light. I just couldn't go to painting them again. I get it. Like a lot of people think that that paint, that little bit of paint doesn't have a big difference, but paint's
Yeah.
heavy, especially clear coat's
Yeah.
heavy. The heaviest material besides like anything metal on a fishing rod, per its size, per size, whatever, is epoxy.
Mhm.
Like when we make a fishing rod, epoxy is the heaviest weight, or like over the graphite, plastic, all that other stuff. And so when you just do this huge long epoxy clear coat over all the labels, you're adding weight and it's heavy, it's dense.
Yeah.
So I get it.
It's noticeable for sure.
Noticeable. You can tell.
So
Go ahead. Oh.
no, please.
So I wanted to show this because this goes back to all the stories we've been telling. Everybody know what this is?
Yeah. You told me
showed
about
this to
that.
you.
Showed it to
Yeah.
me when I was up there. It's really cool.
So this is an old school Roman made. I can't remember what this is
I was gonna
called.
say, is that a Roman?
Negotiator.
I think it's a
I
negotiator.
was gonna say it's an old
Negotiator,
negotiator. Yeah.
So my experience with swim baits, and Bryant said it perfect. He said use it as a fish locator. When Brandon Polinick, because Polinick has always tested the waters for swim baits before everybody else. He was throwing this negotiators when it hit. This was his first one. I'll tell that story, but he gave it to us years ago when I was still fishing local, and he said, "You need to throw this to find big smallmouth." I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And it took us a while to figure it out, but we were never using it in a tournament. Never was employed during a tournament. Maybe once. But we would practice with that thing and find the biggest smallmouth and mark them. So you could, like the Columbia River, there's so many fish. You're looking for the 5 best fish. We would spend 3 days of practice just throwing that. We were not good at it. Like it never entered the water quietly. I promise you that. Boom, and then you reel it back. And if you pulled one that was bigger than 5 in, you made a waypoint, and then we would run those waypoints all day long. We ended up winning a boat on that strategy, but it was never tied on tournament day, ever. This particular Roman made is the one that Brandon had very first one, and if you'll notice, the paint scheme on it is the scheme that he used when they developed the Urashi Glide. But like I remember every time I saw this, I tried to steal it from him because I'm like, this is the very first one. On my 40th birthday, he gave it to me as a gift. That was really cool. So, but I remember that back in the day. Yeah, it was super cool. But we had Roman maids, but I never cared about what hook was on it. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't using it to catch fish. Now especially with you, and like, hopefully we get. I sent Bo the video that like pretty much what I would think the best glide bait bite I got with you a couple months ago. You actually walked me through getting a bite. But I think since that time, you could dedicate quite a bit of your time in a day, especially in a smallmouth tournament, if they're at all active, throwing glide bait, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day, depends on the conditions. All that stuff matters. Like there's days where they will not touch it. And the best way to know that is by throwing it. Because you can script out the best conditions possible, and sometimes even on those days they're not biting it, and then all of a sudden you'll get like a bluebird clear sky day and you're like, there's no way they're touching it, they're blasting. So kind of what I like to do, especially like tournament wise, is I'll always have a glide bait or 2. I mean, with me that's probably 3 on the deck, and I use it as opportunities to get lucky throughout the day. I won't necessarily go into it like, all right, this is going to be just an insane glide bait day. I'll have something that I'm kind of doing, and then it's kind of how luck works. Like you have to put yourself in position to get lucky. And I'll try to give myself 5, 6, or 7, how many ever opportunities through the day where it's like, all right, I'm going to roll up to this windblown point, throw the glide bait across it for a couple minutes, see if I get lucky. If I do, I'll kind of start adding that more into my rotation. Or if they don't touch it, I'll maybe sample it a little bit later in the day, but I won't necessarily keep running with that. So just I think that's a really underutilized like glide bait technique for tournaments, is just give yourself an opportunity to get lucky throughout the day. Because I mean, where you guys are at, I mean, it could be a 6, 7, 8 pounder. Where Brian's at, it could be a 9, 10 pounder. Like it just gives you the opportunity to get that kicker in the boat.
So give us 3 spots that you will, if you look at it, 3 like situations that if you look at it, the glide bait goes first. Everything stops. I don't care what you're doing. You put it down, and the glide bait happens. Like give me an example.
The first one's going to like be it's no one really talks about this, and it's post spawn. Like especially on like a body of water that's got a little bit of current, when they're kind of pulled off to that 20, 25 foot, I'll weight that sucker down. And like, we're talking aggressive. Once they start coming after it, like once there's a school of them down there and you're working at maybe 5 to 10 foot above their head. Once you kind of get that first one to kind of like peek up at it, start going and start getting more and more aggressive. And that biggest one in that school is going to smoke it. I mean, like Lake of the Ozarks, which that's not a lot of like, there's not a lot of big fish in there. You don't think of like 7-8 pounders out of Lake of the Ozarks. Post spawn, there's a 2-3 week stretch that a boss is going to win and be the top 2-3 finishers in every single tournament during those weeks. It can't be beaten during those couple weeks. And it's just, I truly think that once they get done with that post spawn and they kind of get out in that current situation, they start immediately feeding on big gizzard shad, and you can just get so snappy and so aggressive with a big glide bait like a boss, and it's just it's lights out. So that's probably my first scenario where I really like throwing a glide bait is that first couple weeks post spawn. Usually it kind of coincides with, if you're further south, it's really late May. If you're around me, it's kind of early June. That's my all-time favorite time to throw a glide. Second time is going to be the fall. Give me some spit and nasty conditions. When they're kind of got their feed bags on, kind of targeting some big kind of darker rock, something that kind of pulls those big gizzards up and start kind of eating some algae. That's just, it can be a really, really fun glide bait bite then. And third, I mean, probably the book of glide bait fishing, pre-spawn, big old poofy clouds, a little bit of wind. And yeah, just a little bit before the spawn. That's probably number 3 for me.
I should have wrote it down, but I'm just going to play
You
it.
can
over
watch
and
our
over again.
podcast.
It's
again.
I'll just watch the podcast.
There's this podcast you can watch.
Or I'll just literally pick up the phone and call you and be like, Josh.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
don't
getting
know-
bites, Josh.
I don't know how that works on the West Coast. I've never done any of that. I mean, my one experience on the West Coast was with you in September. And was that September or October?
I think it was
October.
October. It was like
It was
the first
October?
cold
Yep.
weekend.
I remember because I was moving to Washington when Jake called and said, you should come out and do this with us. And I was completely unable to. And then I think it was after you guys did it, he was like, by the way, guess who we were with? And I was
He went fanboy on us.
He was
I
so
had some
mad.
words. I was pissed. I was pissed. And then he sent me the video of the first day, and I was just like, get out of here. Well, so man, so before I moved up here to Washington, the Columbia River was technically my home water. I was 40 minutes from it. And I became fairly obsessed over the course of a few years throwing glide baits on the river. And I'm going to I want to, first of all, you're right. Post spawn with current is lights out, and it is super cool. And I was able to figure that bite out a few years ago where if you find fish, usually they would be sitting on current seams, kind of like hugged up against grass. And, you could send it out and get it down to, whatever. I'd sink it down to 5 to 10 feet, and it's crazy how they'll swarm. But one thing that I struggled with, and I'm hoping from a bait maker's perspective, you can help explain this, is kind of, I want to know your experience, because now you have a bait out that's being produced in ABS, correct?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. How is, like, I feel like, so there was a bait maker who had a resin based bait that he was making, and it was phenomenal on the river. And I guess this is a 2-part question. I'm trying to understand to explain to people the difference of like a bait that feels heavy, but that doesn't sink or isn't weighty.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always feel like a resin based bait had, like, it tracked better in current. Like a lot of times I'll fish areas on the river where, where you are hitting a seam where slack water meets current, and you want to play in and out of that. And if you have a bait that doesn't hold that weight, doesn't necessarily sink fast, but doesn't hold that weight, it'll blow out. The current will blow it right out. So I guess I'm like curious if you know the difference between if you could explain the difference between the two better, but also like, Yeah, is that something that you experience when building this? Is like how to keep things that hold in current?
Yeah. So I actually have a interesting theory here that I've kind of been working on over the past year or so. I used to think that resin was the absolute best material to make a glide bait out of, no second question. It was because I thought it carried the most buoyancy, and ABS actually carries far more buoyancy than resin does. And what you're kind of talking about is you're kind of fighting. You're having the different forces acting on the momentum of the bait as it moves through the water, and momentum is mass times velocity. So heavier mass, more velocity means that bait's going to go further through the water until all those outside forces start acting on it and bring it to a stop. So by that definition, something that carries more mass, which would be able to be achieved more from an ABS bait, in theory, that should be able to perform better in those kind of current situations than a resin bait does. By just looking at it based off that alone,
Mm-hmm.
then why doesn't that work?
Mm-hmm.
Like why do all the ABS baits not perform like the resin ones? And my theory on this is I don't think there's been a good one made yet. And by that I mean I've been working on some baits. I've been working on some mass produced stuff. It takes so much time to prototype, it's not even funny. Like if you're sending something over to a factory and you're kind of going back and forth, like we've worked on one project for 2 years and we've only had a handful of prototypes on. Like if I was working at that rate in-house, the number of prototypes I'd have in the amount of like the 2-year stretch, like I'd have that in 2 weeks in-house. So I think the resin bait manufacturers, the reason why the baits are better is because we're able to experiment, fail, adapt, experiment, fail, and adapt so much faster than what you can do with any sort of factory. So I think all these ABS baits, they're getting produced, they're getting a couple prototypes kicked back, and it's like, man, we've been working on this thing for 1.5 years, 2 years. We're seeing very minimal progress. This thing's pretty good as it is. It's not like as good, but it's pretty good. Let's just go with it.
Send it.
And I think
Yeah.
that's literally how pretty much every ABS bait is being manufactured right now. It's a theory.
Like
It's
your
a theory.
investment going back and forth, especially if you're a bigger company, gets to the point where you're like, we can keep going. You know what I mean? We can keep going with this, but we'll be out of they'll have to sell for $300 just to get our money back. Yeah.
Is the swaver the exception to the rule?
No, because I think back in the day it probably was. Because it was a really good bait back in the day. But have you thrown one lately? Like even the ones from back in the day.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's usually a river staple.
Okay.
Because
I was gonna say they swim so much different than I remember them swimming back in the day. Like you bring it through the water now, you're like, like at least
it's unimpressive, but for some reason it holds, like, I think because of the actual width of the whole bait.
Yeah.
It holds, it tracks itself through, again, and I'm talking strictly like a river current. Like it tracks itself really well.
Yeah. And we don't have a lot
because it's so clunky.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of like river experience. Like the current I was talking about was like in a man-made reservoir where they're like generating current through it.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite TVA like. I mean TVA works there too, but yeah, I guess what I'm thinking you're thinking of is like an actual like river where that sucker is like moving. And in that case, I don't have a lot of experience with glide baits.
Well, your daughter's great in it.
Glad it worked out.
He doesn't need any help selling those.
No.
No, I remember the first one I got. Bryant tried to take it. I'm going to borrow this. No, you're not. Like, get away from me.
Give it
and then
to
I
me.
think I had a.
Give it to me.
I still owe Bryant money for one that he bought for me.
Yeah. Now that people know that I know you, one of the phone calls I get pretty randomly is, hey, listen, I missed the last drop. Can you do me a favor and call Josh? I'll pay full price. I'll actually pay 120% of the asking price if I could just get a mini boss or baby boss or just call him. I'm not calling the guy and like blowing him up about baits. You guys just get on the mailing list, and when they come out, buy them.
It's gotten better, dude, but there was a solid year and a half where I could not hit a drop. I tried to get a boss for, I think, about 18 months, and I gave up.
Yeah, we've
I gave up.
I did.
We've more than doubled our number of employees in the past 6 months. So we're kicking out way more baits than we've ever done, and we've not cured the supply issue, but we've gotten it to where those baits last between 15 and 30 minutes on a drop, and that's better than it was for sure.
That's crazy.
There and then they're gone.
It's awesome.
That's crazy.
So, Bo, can you make that video work? Do you think?
Yeah.
Should we try it? Like,
Yeah.
while hopefully this doesn't screw up the recording, but
I mean, you just like I as we tried earlier, I don't think we get any music, or we don't get to hear the sound, but
well, the good news is we've got Josh, and if Josh can see it, you could just give the play-by-play, Josh, kind of like you did in the video, where you're like walking me through my first large glide bait catch, smallmouth, where it was not like just wheeling it down the bank. Oh, what ate it? It was literally like, I see one coming, twitch ball, make him eat it. That whole thing. Yeah, that whole thing. And I'll preface.
I was going to say, can you preface it with where you were and like, how are you tracking fish? Did you see them on scope? Were you doing it a different way? Like,
I'm going to start to finish. I'll preface the whole weekend.
All right.
Alpha's 4th inaugural media event. You're going to see it in this video. This is the first time Alpha's ever had a collab. Josh is the collab, because I won't build something I don't understand how to use. Like, I get questions all the time. Hey, you make rods. Will you make my dad a fly fishing rod? No, I don't know how to make a fly rod. I know how to make a spinnerbait rod. I know how to make a drop shot rod. So Brandon was like, hey, listen, it's time to go to the next level on glide baits. And Brandon designed the wide glide, which is our lighter one. And that's how I met Josh, because Josh was using the wide glide for the darter, I think, right?
Well, I have 4 of them.
Yeah. Okay. So Brandon's like, we need to invite Josh to our media event because we're building this collab rod. And it was Coeur d'Alene Lake, October. The guys all flew in for the event, and it was like the coldest, most miserable day ever when we were setting up. The very next day was pretty miserable too. And I got Ding Dong with me. And my whole job is just to run a camera on Bryant so that we have some media and marketing, and not try to hold his head underwater for too long. Like, it was just like, it was me kind of exercising.
I survived.
Patience. Yeah. Patience is
worry.
a virtue. I mean, we had a prayer session. Jake is going to be patient.
Underwater for
I can't cuss at Bryant when he's got his mic on, because it gets picked up. I call Brandon. Brandon's got Josh and Cletus in the boat, and they're filming. And Bryant is kind of putting a clinic on. Up until about noon, if Bryant saw something, he either caught it, flipped it, punched. I mean, he was dragging him out of 40 feet. I said, hey, there's a lay down over there. I think that was like a 6-pounder you caught on a mag draft, like perfect cast. Got it on camera. And I called a brag to Brandon. I'm like, hey, if you guys need some talent to to get content for this trip. And he's just like, let me stop you right there. We've got like 40 glide bait bites.
Oh my God.
And he goes, I haven't even started the big motor, like crushed them. You guys ran to your first spot and blasted them. And Brian immediately was like, I want to be with them. I'm like, no.
I want to switch
No,
boats.
I'm actually going to take, we're going to go pike fishing.
It was one of those days that, like, you just couldn't do any wrong. It was I'll never forget that day. It was insane.
Best day to have all the cameras full rolling. And the
100%.
worst part about it is the 2 rods that did the most damage, we couldn't release. So I have 800 gigabytes of amazing fish catches, and we finally just released one of them, which is the G-Shake. But for a long time, I was sitting there like, for 2 months, I'm like, I can't use any of this. But now we have all of these fish catches on this collab rod. Anyways, well, let's go into this. So the very next day, Josh was like, okay, come on, Jake, kind of like leading a puppy who can't swim to water. I'll show you how to catch a fish on a glide bait. And this is that video we made. So hopefully it works.
Hold on.
What was our technical associate?
Yeah. While I'm poorly trying to figure this out, maybe I need a minute to figure this out.
I got a question while you start
okay.
to
Never mind.
start to-
Let Brian
I can
ask
fill the
questions.
I can feel you. And it'll kind of relate to, I think, how we're going to do. So you talked about your favorite scenarios for throwing a glide bait, but talk me, and you're going to see it in this video, but talk me through once you see a fish or once you see something you want to cast at, where do we start after the bait hits the water? What are we trying to do with that bait?
So
What did
I feel like that's really trippy and kind of cool.
what did you do, Bo? We're leaving this in the podcast.
Alpha BassCast at its finest right here.
So
Hey,
yeah,
I do this.
that's really
Everybody
cool.
goes.
Hey, play that video, Jamie.
That's great. So yeah, I guess first and most important thing is make sure to pass or cast past the fish. Like if you see that fish on scope and you're seeing that glide bait right down to the fish, a lot of the times, just like a minnow, like that gigs up, you're not gonna really catch them. So cast past them, let it sink down to them. Kind of throughout the day, you're gonna experiment with how far above their heads you work, but just kind of slowly start working it above them. At that point, you're kind of going nice and easy, slow, nothing crazy. And then once that fish recognizes the bait, like you can see his fins flare a little bit, you see him kind of you just perk his interest a little bit. That's when you kind of start playing the cat and mouse with them. If that fish is coming after you hot, keep going hot, like get hotter with it. Just basically trying to keep it away from them a little bit. If that fish is a very lazy, kind of slow, not super hot on it, you're still playing cat and mouse, but you're kind of just you're doing it slower. Like you're just trying to keep that distance, if not increase that distance just a little bit. You're basically antagonizing that fish into biting. And I think that's what I mean, Bryant, you'd be able to tell us like the really good like minnow and dice fishermen, like I feel like the best ones can read individual fish and talk those fish into biting.
100%. 100%. It's seeing the fish's mood, seeing his temperament, and matching that temperament to a T. And that's how you get a lot of the fish to bite, at least for me. And I was lucky enough to go get out on the boat with you, Josh, and you taught me that because, again, I am still very green when it comes to glide bait fishing, but I got in the boat with you at this event and you talked me through that whole scenario of reading the fish. That's the most important thing, and matching that fish's energy. And I think it was like the second cast you were coaching me through and I caught one. So it is pretty incredible um, how well you know these baits and how much time you've put into them.
It's no different than jerk baits and minnows.
Mm-hmm.
With when you're scoping them, it's all about reading them, and the guys that do really really well with it can read the fish the best, and that's why they're on the elite series. That's why they're on the BPT. Like they've spent a lot of time on the water, and they can figure it out.
100%.
You hear a lot of swimbait guys talk about this. Like, do you believe that there's an amount of time where a fish can follow a glide bait where they like? You hear a lot of guys say if they're following it for a certain period of time, or if they're just trailing it for so long, like there's a point where they won't bite it. Or do you believe that there's always a point where you can get them to like react? Or is that just too circumstantial?
It's a deep question.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's very case by case.
It's awesome.
Because I do think there's some fish that absolutely you will not get them to bite no matter what. Like they're hanging 15, 20 foot back and they've got zero interest in it. They're just kind of wanting to watch it, kind of usher it out of their area. If a fish gets a little bit more interested on it, and is showing some interest and showing a willingness to try to close the gap, I do think that you can convert a lot of those fish into biters. Like if you're fishing shallow and that fish is like kind of dancing with it back and forth, I do think that you can talk a lot of those fish into biting. And I think I'd almost put it more on me making a mistake is the reason why that fish isn't going to bite over that fish not biting, just because it doesn't want to bite. Because I think I think we screw up a lot as fishermen when it comes to that exact situation, because you see like this 7-8 pounder come out from underneath the dock after your glide bait. First thing that you do is just freeze and you just make eye contact with it. You're like, whoa. And that's the worst thing you could possibly do. Like, you got to keep it moving. You got to like antagonize them into biting. And your biggest restrictor is how much line you have out. But I think that's also why you see some guys figure eight them next to the boat. Is like they were able to maintain that intensity and keep that fish's curiosity increasing. And then right when it got next to the boat, the bait started freaking out, the fish started freaking out, and all of a sudden you got the fish. So I think it varies case by case. There's definitely some fish that just will never touch it, but I think you can talk a lot more fish into biting than we've given credit to in the past.
Cool. Can you guys see this video?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jake, you're going to have to walk me through where you want this to.
Yeah, go a little bit farther. This was before Bryant killed every battery in my boat, which was the next day. Like, I have never killed a 215 amp hour lithium pro, but it was deader than disco. So you can't hear the voiceover, but go for it, Josh. This is where you're going. All right, listen, Jake.
Yeah, we're kind of looking around for fish. It's been a minute since I've watched this, kind of talking about how we're working it nice and easy, kind of bumping it back and forth up until the fish sees it. And then as just kind of talking through, as that fish gets more and more excited, we're going to increase speed.
Can you pause it for a second, Bo? Right there is perfect. Talk to me about how you work your bait with your reel as opposed to your rod. I think
So
that's something that I need to learn too. Getting comfortable with that.
Yeah. Everyone's a little bit different. I know some guys use the rod. I always like to kind of use the reel. I feel like I can kind of control it better. Because basically, like, you're hitting that bait up until you feel, and that's why such a sensitive rod is critical. You feel that bait load up and shoot that other direction. And I'm kind of stopping and holding that tension a little bit, allowing that bait to get wide. And then once I feel like it's kind of slowed down, I'll hit it again. And I'm literally grinding through it, feeling that bait move through the water. And then again, once it kind of gets tight, I'll kind of let it stop. And then it shoots out to the other side. And that's how I'm bumping it and feeling it in the rod, feeling it in the reel, and just really maximizing the action. And then being able to increase the speed, but maintain that same technique, I think is really important for getting fish to bite. Rod bumps, like if you're bumping the rod, you can kind of do the same thing. It's literally basically the same thing, where you're kind of bumping it, feeling that rod load up just a little bit and stopping, and that bait shooting out to the side. So it's just kind of all different ways in which you feel more confident in controlling the bait.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I struggle with the most too is I want to get to a point where it's rhythmic, and it's really not. It is actually feeling what your bait is doing, because with the gear ratio of the reel, you cast it way out there. You're going to have to reel a little bit extra because you don't have as much line on there. But as you get closer, you're going to have to slow down a little bit. So the feeling part of it, it's definitely something I need to practice on for sure. But it's something I've noticed over the years of working glide baits like that. It's something I struggle with because I want it to be a rhythm. I want to do the same thing at the end of the cast at the beginning of the cast to the end of the cast, and it's not like that.
Do you feel like I was just trying to think while you guys were talking about this, Josh? Do you think I don't know if I can't think of another bait that is as feedback based as glide baits are. Like, can you think of something that really exists as feedback based? Like, and when I say feedback, where it's like truly like in my experience, like what I'm doing with the reel is directly dependent on what I'm feeling that bait's doing through the rod tip.
The baits that came to mind for me were jerkbait and frog.
Oh, yeah.
Frog's going to be a little bit more visual, and jerkbait, like, it's very different, but it's kind of similar, where you're feeling like your pops on it are, how do I describe that? Like, some pops, like you seem like you're moving more line and you're feeling more tension through your pop. And then there's sometimes that you're on it where you're not really feeling much of any tension. You're kind of almost popping the slack line. And maybe at the very end of your pop, you're feeling it get tight a little bit and that bait move. So I think jerkbait would be the closest, maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is that what you're kind of or did I miss the boat completely there?
No, absolutely
100%.
nailed it. Yeah. I when you said it, I maybe a spook, maybe, but that's
But those are
again,
visual.
it's
You
so
know when you're
visual.
screwing those.
Yeah.
I guess you could say chatterbait and spinnerbait too.
I think
Like when you're
chatterbait
bringing
for
it through
sure.
the water and you're like feeling it tick the tops of the grass and stuff, and you're kind of getting in that rhythm where it's loading up a little bit. You pop it free a little bit, and you're just kind of ticking along, and like you're almost like I guess it's just it's fishing more than anything, where it's just like you're in tune and rhythm with your bait.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but like, I don't know. And maybe I'm crazy. I am crazy, but maybe I'm crazy by saying this. But I don't know, Josh, do you ever get to the point where when you're fishing a glide bait, based on what you're feeling, I can almost see exactly, like see it exactly what it's doing just by what my hands and what I'm feeling on the rod tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I don't know. I can't think of another bait where I've maybe had that same experience. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes more sense.
I
Think
think
it's
it's the
crazy.
most important with the glide bait, knowing what your bait is doing, especially when you do get a fish to follow it. Like you said, you don't want to mess it up. So you need to be knowing exactly what every reel twitch, every bump of the rod is going to do to that bait so you can get that fish to convert from a follower to a biter.
We'll play the rest of the video. You'll watch him not being able to feel it, but still tell me how to do it. And then I get the bite. Because he can't feel what I'm doing. He can just see. But you can see, like, yeah. Keep
You can
talking,
see the
Josh.
raw
But
you can see the
watch the line.
line. Yeah. The line load up and drop. So once that line kind of loads up, and that's a bait that
Pause it right
it's
there.
a brand new one.
Can you go back? And
Yeah.
That one. It's not
When's
out
that?
yet.
God, are we blowing something up? Way to go,
No.
Jake.
We can show all this. It's
I'll blur
fine.
it out.
Good.
We'll let people,
I'll blur it out for
know that
everybody.
we'll let people know that there's something else in the can. Yeah, it's a bait that's not done yet. Catches fish really well, but it does something a little goofy every once in a while that I want to try to work out of it, and I've not been able to. So it's one of those projects that the harder I work on it, the further I get away from it being done. So one of these days it'll all click and it'll be done, but not yet.
I will say, with that new one compared to a baby boss, I think the new one, I won't say the name unless you want to say the name, but it casts. I think I can cast it better. Like, I
Gotcha.
felt like it
We're
loaded and flew through the air better, for
Yeah.
sure.
We're calling it the Bolt.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
could
kind-
straight.
I'm totally going to blur it out just to make everybody jealous.
It's
straight.
kind of a combination between a darter and a boss.
The best-
I was just, yeah.
The best
yeah.
part about that color scheme, you can't really tell, but I think like 4 days before he was coming down, he's like, "What do they eat in Coeur d'Alene?" I said, "They eat kokanee."
God,
got a
is that
picture?
like a dark shad?
No, it's kokanee. So I called my dad as a kokanee fisherman, and this spring he was out, and I'm like, "Hey, send me a picture of one of these things so I know what kind of the bait looks like." So I know it, because they're a little bit different. So Dad sent me a picture of a kokanee, and I forwarded it off to Josh, and then these things were ready 3 days later. And this was the scene of the crime: 43 fish catches or whatever on camera the day prior, and that particular bait was one of the new ones, but one of the old ones that was just.
Jake, do you know how many guys that have spent hours waiting for drops and missing them want to burn your house to the ground right now? As you're just casually like, oh yeah, he just made me a custom color and a prototype bait, and we just screwed around on it all day.
Yeah, I'd have never lived in
There are
that world.
swim bait nerds out there that want to murder you.
It's Josh's fault. Just
I'm
for reference
He's
too,
gonna
because
get
everybody.
so many calls when everybody sees
I'm
this
not
bait.
getting
Like,
any.
when's it
It's gonna
coming
be
out?
hate
When's it
mail.
coming
Somehow
out? I need it.
Somehow it leaked in the Ozarks. I can't remember how it leaked in the Ozarks, but guys around here were like, "Oh, there's a bolt. There's a new bait called the Bolt," and they have been asking for it like nonstop. It's like, no, dude, it's not even like close to being done, but doesn't stop them from wanting it.
Yeah, I made you sign mine so that I don't feel like I should throw it, but I can't promise I won't throw it. All right. So, and by the way, just for the rest of you techie nerds, that's a TAT 300, right?
And that's the new collab rod.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is.
Which we're going to talk about in a minute.
That's a 7-1. I can see it. All right. Let her rip, dog. Play the rest of this 101 class.
Watch the line here. Well, if it goes down to the line. Never mind.
This is
you
you
can see
talking me
a little
through
bit
it.
more aggressive there. There was one that was kind of hot on it there. And you can see me kind of just trying to play that fish. Trying to get aggressive with it, trying to read it, slowing down a little bit, speeding up a lot more, just trying to get it to trigger, basically.
And there goes Jake doing a little
There's
pot
Jake with
licking.
no
He's like,
idea
I'm gonna
what he's
throw
doing.
something right behind him.
Nope. Not a clue.
I think wasn't there a school right there?
Yeah, I think there was a couple sitting on. There was a little shallow rock shelf that they're on. Oh
It's been a
yeah,
minute. Big
My-
old bomb.
that was.
Now, here's this is your catch. You're faster, twitch it faster. There it goes.
Ooh, look at that.
The
hook
best
set.
part after the hookup was
Ooh.
you're like, no,
almost killed
real,
Josh.
don't play it, don't. Yeah, he's like, don't play it. No, boat flip it. I'm like, I'm not boat flipping that. It's like a 4.5 pound
Boom.
smallmouth. Yeah.
You got to
Boom.
grind, boat flip.
Yeah, that's the secret bait. It was dope. Well, and like he's like, do not fight it. Do not like. I'm a rod maker. The last thing I want is for you guys to be like, oh, we should boat flip more. Like I hate that. And there's a wrong way to do it and a right way to do it. But he's like, boat flip. And like he's yelling at me. Like you'll see it when we release the video. But
It's so easy to lose them. Like it's such a big bait. They've got so much leverage. It's so easy for him to toss it. Like, yeah. Listen to Jake. Don't boat flip unless you've got a giant that's got one hook on it. In which case, and don't be dumb. But
yeah,
boat flip it.
there is a way to do it, not a way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, but I get it. There's too much weight. In a tournament situation, I would lose my mind. You know what I mean? I'd be willing to break the rod if you needed the fish. You know what I mean? But there is a wrong way to boat flip those big fish when they're hooked like that. But I also think you're right. They come out of the water once. What's the landing percentage, you know?
Yeah. Significantly lower than if it stays down and its only fight was in the air coming into the boat.
Yeah. Is that why you use a 7-1 is just so you can crank them in, or is that just the right?
I feel like a 7-1's a perfect blend of power and speed. Like all the old school swim bait guys are like, oh, you want like a 5-6-1 or a 6-3-1. I think with modern day swim baits or modern day glide baits, like you want a little bit more speed on it. You can get a little bit more aggressive. Those guys are like, well, I can just reel faster. It's like, well, your rhythm still feels off with it. And for me personally, I feel like the best combination of speed and power is 7-1. You get up to 8-1 and like you kind of get bullied by some 6-pounders and you lose a 6-pounder because you got bullied and you're kind of like, all right, I'm done with this 8-1. And then you can't really convert the bites on a 6-3-1. So I kind of stay away from that. So that's 7-1 is just the perfect gear ratio for me.
Gotcha. And 20 pound, was that 20 pound fluoro?
Yep. If I'm fishing shallow, I'll actually throw mono a lot.
I was going to ask if you're a fan of mono.
I like it when shallow. If we're scoping, I like fluoro. But the big reason there, I always forget to retie a lot, and fluoro on those big baits really gets worn down quick. And usually, if you cast off a bait, it's either on braid because your line doubled over midair and braid can't take the shock and it just pops. Or it's fluoro and you didn't retie. And if you're fortunate enough to get your bait back, you'll notice about that much fluoro hanging off the end of your bait. That's just because you were casting on that one little section of fluorocarbon over and over and over again, didn't retie, and it just kind of wore out in that one area.
Just so much weight and pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight.
I have a spool of Berkeley Big Game always in the boat because I'm still the guy who rocks the Berkeley Big Game 20 pound for glide baiting.
100%. And you got to get it from Walmart too.
That
100%.
stuff.
That's
It's mandatory.
Yeah, you
No,
have to
It's
get it
got
from
to be
Walmart.
from Wally World. Yep.
Yeah.
That stuff's cheaper than eggs.
It's so cheap, dude.
You get
So
2,000
cheap.
yards for $1.99.
Yeah,
And somehow like the best glide bait line.
hands down.
That's funny.
It's so weird.
If you ever break
Okay,
your
so
tow
I
winch on your
so
trailer, you
Yeah.
can just use it to tie it back to the trailer.
that's true too.
I have so much of it that, and I always buy it and I use like one spool and then I set it down. My daughter had to go decorate for like the Christmas formal and they wouldn't hang up a bunch of stuff. And they're like, Dad, do you have any spare fishing line? And she goes to reach for like my floor. I'm like, no. And I handed her the big game and I'm like, use some of this. Like, I'm tired of looking at it. She goes, man, we hung. She gets back and she gives it back to me like, you guys use it at all? And she shows me a picture and like they have it strung all over like this party, like everywhere. There's 1,000 yards missing and the spool's still full. It's $1.99. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Best ever. Okay, so so as I said, I didn't get to make you guys this fun little weekend. And as an attempt to stop me from whining, I think I cried. I think Jake listened to me sob a little bit. And so to make me feel better, he sent me one of these rods that is coming out soon.
Our first collab.
And he said, you can play with this for a little while. And it made me feel a little bit better. It's awesome. This is perhaps one of the most enjoyable and unique glide bait rods I've ever had. One of the things that stands out to me immediately, and Jake, maybe you can speak to it, and I don't think you can see, but I don't think there's an Alpha Angler rod that has this kind of weave going on. So obviously this blank is unique to your lineup. One thing I noticed is how incredibly light and stiff it feels initially, but once you load it up and put something on it, it has its own little life to it. But I don't know. Let's break this down, Jake. Tell me a little bit about this blank. I'd love for you guys to tell me how you guys created this.
I almost went all the way backwards in this chair.
Would have loved.
Please
to
do
have
that.
Loved to.
The problem is there's about 40 pounds of metal sitting right here.
Oh no. Is that a trophy? Oh my God.
All on your trophies.
Oh,
Here
yeah.
we go.
That would have hurt.
I hope
Death
you
by
fail
trophy.
yourself.
That would be the way you go, Bryant.
Oh, you guys are jerks.
Anyways, we'll get back on track.
Right, I'm back. I'm ready.
I think what the official name of this new rod is going to be the Honcho. Am I correct, Josh?
I believe so. Shout out to
I
Clint
love
Bartlett,
that.
cameraman Cletus.
Named
I
it
love
the,
that.
Cletus.
the Honcho.
That's a great name for it.
And the reason it is probably
Hucking
the
the
most
Honcho.
unique swim bait rod. Hucking the Honcho. I don't know swim bait rods because I don't buy a bunch of them. So Josh, you'll have to tell me this, but I bet it's probably the most unique swim bait rod you've ever held in your hand. Like
For sure.
there's nothing else like it. Okay. The cross hatching that you showed, Bo, is woven graphite that's done in a crosshatch pattern, which makes it so that it can resist ovaling under heavy loads. But there's not a bunch of glass in it. Most of the rods, when you're trying to have a heavy weight to it, you have to add glass so that the rod can withstand high levels of pressure. Like you could bend it. If you take a rod and bend it too much and it's all graphite and it doesn't have the right makeup, it ovals. And when something ovals like that, it cracks on the outsides. And that's generally when you see failures. That particular rod, the very first time like we started touching, it was just like, this is crazy technology. It actually has a normal wrap of graphite on the inside of it, and then that graphite weave on the outside of it. So probably the best power to weight ratio I've ever seen in any rod. Like it is light, but you can throw what's the Boss, 6 ounces?
A Boss is just over 4.
Okay, so I think we've thrown up to, would you throw more than 4? Would you be comfortable with 5 on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
5, 6. Yeah, for sure.
So, but if you pick it up, you'll be like, this rod it's just compared to everything else on the market that can throw something that heavy, that rod is extremely light. And I think
it weighs nothing. Yeah.
I think
I almost feel like a 300 would overbalance it. No?
Well, I mean, not worried about
300 on it.
Yeah.
I feel like it fits really, really well. And the magic in that rod is when you go to cast it. Like it's it's effortless. Like you just go through the motions and you can launch a boss like 100, 120 foot and it's like on a dime. You're like, what? Like, how is this even possible? Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I don't worry about balance much, Bo, when you're tipped down anyway. But I think
Sure.
what I know, like even in that slow-mo where you were showing earlier, Bo, where it's slow-mo, if the rod's not super heavy and you're not having to manipulate it with your hand to keep it in the right direction, when you go to feel slack, it's going to feel it's so much lighter that slack is going to feel so much. You're gonna like, oh my gosh, that went slack. It's going to, that's what I noticed, because I have a hard time knowing, okay, slack goes, you know what I mean? Whatever that chopping that you have to get good at, the rod is so light that you get that feedback quick, right? Because the rod isn't resisting the line due to its weight or bulk. And so I think that's why you guys think it's sensitive. It is more graphite than you're probably going to see, but it also has a really, and I'm not going to say this like go boat flip big ones. I'm not going to say that, but it has a great power to weight ratio. How's that?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah. And your
Go boat
warranties
flip
have
big
been
ones.
declined.
They got a warranty like you would not believe.
Yeah.
I thought it was a 10. I thought it was a 10 and it got air miles. It was just a very, very skinny 8 3/4.
These are the things we're going to be cutting out of the podcast. I'm just kidding. Rod, you want to watch a rod maker freak out. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but Josh, to your credit with this thing, because I did string it up and there's a little pond by my house and I just went and chucked a glide bait around off a dock just to see how it felt. And I was blown away how effortless it was to cast and what it performed for how little work it took. You know, even with the wide glider, you used to like enough of that fiberglass to where there's that kind of delay in the cast. And so you have to put a little bit more of that like return into it. And I think that really, I mean, if like, you know, if you're going out swim baiting all day, like that's usually will make your shoulder real tired. But I feel like there's a lot less fatigue that I'm going to get out of this rod. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, I don't know. I will tell you this before I know we've been at this for a while, but if you think that Brandon is picky and detail oriented, Josh is right there with him. Like, we were removing what, 1/4 inch chunks off the tip and moving the handle around. Like it was, these are adjustments that I could have never made, right? I have to have Josh and I have to have Brandon to build. This is not something that's my wheelhouse. So we were just the rod builders at this point. They were actually creators. But yeah,
was this built around a certain clutch swim bait, or did you guys make this to be versatile across the line, or anything else?
It was originally designed around the boss, and being able to throw that well, and that handle length was like super, super critical for me, because I mean, the going trend in the swim bait world is we want 36 inch long handles and on an 8-foot rod, and you're like,
it goes all the way up the armpit.
Thing, surf casting, and it's like, why? Is just it gets in the way so much. Like, especially like around here where we're roll casting around docks a lot, like you can't be efficient with a crazy long handle. Like you're having to do weird maneuvers to get it around your stomach, and God help if you're in a winter coat. Like you've got to have something that you can just move effortlessly, and like just it's got to be as effortless of a motion as if you're like skipping a swim jig around docks and reeling it. Like you want to be that efficient with it. And I think that's what that handle length and that rod in general just does really, really well.
Yeah. Would you say, like, you obviously know a ton about rods. I mean, because I'm a tournament angler, because everybody's in this group, you know, would you say this is more kind of tournament oriented kind of, or is it can throw any glide bait? We just made the handle the right length, or, you know, it's definitely not an all day, like stick it under your armpit and reel and drink coffee glide bait rod.
Yeah, I would say it's a lot more modern day swim bait style rod, where we were kind of talking about the differences between old school and then the new school. I definitely would classify it under the newer school stuff for sure. You're not making these gigantic bomb casts across points. And yeah, I mean, that being said, the rod just casts like the handle is way longer than it is. That's what
I
it feels.
agree.
The way that thing loads and is so effortless. Like if you really get after it, you can launch that thing a long way, and it feels. And the result of the cast is like your handle is so much longer. You've got so much more leverage on it, but it's just in a little bit smaller package. And I honestly feel like the wide glide's that way too. Like the wide glide has a fairly short handle, and you can cast that thing a long ways with that short of a handle.
Yeah, a lot of that is action, but yeah.
Yeah,
Super
Jake, you
cool.
just worked magic with it.
Well, and to give credit, Dad, my GM, the other business partner, designed the handle of the wide glide or of the new rod, the Honcho. I think he's got it down. Like it feels good, but it's not, obtrusive. So hopefully, if you guys get a hold of one, you like it. But
It's
like,
it's
Yeah,
by
that'll be
far
a
the best of both worlds as far as being able to cast it, but still being able to impart action, being able to make those short casts. It's kind of that all around glide bait rod that nobody's really made yet. And I think it's going to check pretty much all the boxes that you need to successfully throw a glide bait. And the other cool thing is it keeps the fish hooked really, really well, especially when you just grind on them
just
and
real.
boat flip them
So what kind of
Gotta
a
boat flip 'em.
blast? If I take one of those things and tie an A rig up to it, what kind of names are you guys gonna call me? Like,
Oh, I already throw A-rigs.
I've thought about it.
all right, okay.
I'm not lying. I've already thought about it.
A crazy A-rig rod.
Yeah.
all right,
I'm blistering him on that rod on an A-rig.
because I'll be like, I'm
I've
done
already
with
thought
this.
about it.
Screw this glide bait stuff. I'm going back to easy, bomb and reel. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got a really good bend for an A-rig for sure.
Well, cool, Josh. I know that you are probably on your way to go some show. By the time this comes out, your show will probably be over. But we're
When's
super
this come out
grateful.
again?
What's that?
When's this come out again?
I think in 3 weeks, which we
3
will
weeks?
edit. We'll edit this out.
I will be hopefully on the end of my crazy stretch here. So yeah.
Well,
Hopefully I didn't eat too much tonight because I've been very sleep deprived the past week. So
no,
this
has been amazing.
This is Bo has already said it's his favorite podcast.
Yeah.
We haven't even released it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm biased, but also I think the coolest thing is like, this is the first time we've kind of rabbit holed down like technique and like we've kind of prided ourselves. We were talking, this is our 22nd episode. So we've kind of prided ourselves on not like really getting super technical or diving too far into, we kind of talk about more of the culture and more of what's happening and less about what did I go out and do on the water today. But this, I don't know. It's swim baiting such an interesting art form of technique. And it's, you go from all the way from the guys that are making these baits and then the people that are making rods for them. And, all the way to, like you said, there's all these different schools of thought and process and opinions. And I just think it's a really unique and cool thing to dive down. So, and I also just like it.
Well, thanks, Josh. You'll probably hear from us again. We'd like to have you back on maybe later on this year and talk more glide bait technique stuff if you'd be willing to do that. Help out some. Yeah. I mean, there's guys like me that just, we're not good at, we need some education. So we need you to come back on and walk us through some more stuff if you're cool with it.
I feel like you're sandbagging everyone, Jake. You talk. I just feel like
you saw me. You saw me.
Did you see the video? We all watched the video. He was just as surprised as the fish when he bit.
Yeah.
Did you see him stutter? Like he was like, "Oh my gosh, I did get bit," and then he sets the hook.
That is 100%.
I'm the same way. No, if somebody watches this podcast all the way through, they are going to be a better glide bait fisherman, and we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. And I would love to dive even deeper because I don't think there's a technique that's more intricate. Like just listening to you talk about how you design the baits and all these different variables that go into it. First of all, I want to thank you for doing it, because there's no way that I could ever design a glide bait. I know that now. I'm confident in that. And I appreciate you putting a really good product out there that a guy who just likes to chuck in wine can catch some fish on.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a pretty cool job that I get to do for a living, for sure. And super honored that it's led us to the point where we've got a collab rod that we're working on, and I get to go on cool podcasts like this and hang out for a bit and talk fishing. So I greatly appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome.
Ditto, buddy.
Yeah.
Sweet,
thanks,
man. I appreciate it.
All right, till next time.
Yep. We'll see you soon.
You're just gonna kill it, but we need to tell him to leave his browser open.
Oops.
I'll call him.
Okay.
Are we done? Is this it?
I don't know. You want to? We both did it at the same time. We were like, "Meh." I don't know. Let's close this sucker up. That was freaking cool.
Yeah, that dude's awesome. When next we meet, I believe that Bryant will be road bound.
Mm-hmm.
I think. So
Will
travel
you be
safely.
on the road when we meet next
I
time?
will have been on the road.
And back, or still on the road?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's going to be interesting this year, kind of. We're trying to be more consistent, so we're knocking out more podcasts while we're available. Timelines might not link up too well, but at least we'll have consistent content coming out.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
So I couldn't tell you where I'm going to be. I mean, I might be home. I might be in Alabama. This might come at the Classic. Who knows?
We should do a Classic podcast.
I put a date in there for the Classic podcast.
Where we make fun of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Well, once again, gentlemen,
boys.
Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful evening. And travel safely. And
you too. You travel safely.
I'm getting ready. I'm eastbound and down.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going south.
You're going
Westbound and south.
That's right. All right. I love you, gentlemen. Good night.
See ya.